everyone. Thank you for making time to join what will be the first of a webinar series that will really take a close look at the kind of impact shared interest is driving through its guarantee fund and innovative business model. We appreciate you making time out of your schedule to learn more about the work of shared interest as investors, as donors, and as community partners. Shared interest plays a really vital role in driving financial inclusion and promoting the kinds of systems change that unlocks critical capital for the Black women entrepreneurs and other small and growing businesses that are the target of our work. Because of the support we've received from impact investors, philanthropic supporters, and community partners, we've been able to provide $35 million in loan guarantees that is unlocking some $135 million in local capital across Southern Africa. This work is ultimately reaching 2.4 million beneficiaries, 70% of whom are women and youth. Today, that mission is now more critical than ever. Across Africa, small and medium-sized enterprises remain the backbone of local economies. They solve social and environmental issues, and importantly, they drive job creation. Yet many struggle to access the kind of capital they sorely need. So with that as an introduction, I couldn't be more proud to say who I am. I'm Ann McMichael, and I'm the Executive Director of Shared Interest. And we have been looking at ways in which we can look more closely at what our impact is driving, who's behind the impact, and ways that we can mobilize more capital to support the critical work that is driving the kinds of social impact that our donors and our partners want to see happen, even in this politically fraught moment. So I have the pleasure of sharing the stage with some incredible partners. We have been joined by our third-party advisors who are consultants that really drive our work forward in two of our critical countries, Malawi and Mozambique. I'm excited that who will be moderating this discussion will be my wonderful board partner, Charlotte McLean-Valepo. I'll do some brief introductions and then turn the stage over to her. Charlotte is the Global Disability Advisor for the World Bank Group. Her work at the bank focuses on disability inclusive development under its twin goals to end poverty and promote shared prosperity on a livable planet. She's got a broad and impressive CV, so I'm just going to pull out some real stellar points that I think are critical to the discussion today. In 2011, as a well-respected human rights lawyer in disability and child rights, she was appointed by President Obama to lead USAID's work on disability inclusive development, including development policies and country strategies for technical assistance for program implementation. Charlotte also represented the National Human Rights Institution during the negotiations of the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities and was a member of the working group that drafted the treaty. Most recently, Charlotte was given an honorary doctorate from Stellenbosch University in South Africa and is a Rockefeller Fellow. She is a board member of Shared Interest, and she co-chairs our Credit Risk Committee. Thank you, Charlotte. I'll turn it over to you now.
Thank you, Anne. And it's wonderful to be able to be part of this and moderate this session. So welcome to everybody. Like Anne said, we often hear that SMEs are the backbone of African economies. At a global level, evidence also shows us that SMEs drive growth and job creation, yet across emerging markets and developing economies, they still face a financing gap measured in trillions of dollars. Expanding access unlocks innovation, it creates jobs, and it builds and fosters inclusion, especially for women and for youth, multiplying community benefits and advancing diversification, productivity, sustainability, and very importantly, addressing poverty-reducing growth. And yet behind this evidence, millions of entrepreneurs struggle to create these jobs, to support families and build businesses despite limited access to finance. Today's discussion will explore how cooperatives and community-based organizations can help bridge the gap and why they are becoming increasingly important in connecting local capital with local opportunity. To help us unpack this, I'm joined by two fantastic colleagues who work directly with financial institutions and entrepreneurs on a daily basis. So they will bring to us the experience from the field. I would like to first start by introducing Joyce Massey. And Joyce is a development finance and impact investing specialist. She's been in this space for 15 years. And she has at least 9 years in SME financing. She has worked on blended financing, guaranteed lending. She's also worked with many of the leading financial institutions, including Nedbank, Standard Bank, and she specializes in climate and gender smart finance, risk mitigation, and inclusive lending strategies. As mentioned by Anne, she is with shared interest as a program consultant working on Malawi, and she holds a postgraduate diploma in development finance from the University of Cape Town, and she's passionate about advancing inclusive and sustainable financial systems. Our second speaker is Milton Langer, and Milton is a seasoned banking and finance professional, also with 15 years of experience. And in his career, he's been driving business development, credit structuring across Mozambique's corporate and commercial sectors. He's currently a program consultant with shared interest, and he specializes in unlocking SME financing by contracting credit guarantees with local financial institutions. So Milton holds an MBA in business management and is certified in green finance. He's also deeply committed to fostering economic growth by bridging financing gaps for small and medium enterprise. So we have an excellent set of colleagues to help us unpack this important discussion today. So I'd like to start off by posing a question to Joyce and Milton, and start off by saying, when people hear the term SME, they often think of a startup business. In Malawi and Mozambique, who are these entrepreneurs? Who are they really? And what do their businesses look like? And why are they so important to the local communities?
Thank you so much, Charlotte, and good evening to everyone. By way of introduction, Malawi is a small landlocked country in Southeastern Africa, bordering Tanzania, Mozambique, and Zambia. Our population is roughly 23 million, 80% of which is rural. And these rural communities are running small businesses that are supporting practically the entire country. So if you look at the type of businesses that they're running, they are smallholder farmers engaging in food production, translating into food security, and livestock farmers, fisheries, beekeeping. There's women agro-processors. You've got traders and retailers that connect rural communities to goods and markets, and the youth running tailoring shops, repair services. So very small businesses, but deeply rooted to their communities and essential to everyday life. And they're the primary source of income for entire households. And they provide support extensive networks of suppliers, workers, and customers. So these small little businesses providing jobs, in fact, 75% of jobs are created by these small businesses. And they're keeping families afloat, and they're solving a lot of problems, including affordable services, climate smart farming, and food security.
Thank you, Joyce. And I think what we take away from there is that these are people who live in the community. They're our neighbors. It's people that we should be caring for and ensuring that they are empowered. Milton, can you maybe talk to us a bit about Mozambique?
Yes, thank you. Good evening, everyone. And I hope that everyone is listening to me properly. It's a great honor to be part of this webinar and be able to share about Mozambique and what shared interest has been doing and the impact that we are creating. As Joyce mentioned, Mozambique is part of the neighboring countries of Malawi and other six English-speaking countries in the southern east side of Africa. Basically, our population is around 34 to 35 million, mostly located in the north of Mozambique. The largest population is in the north of Mozambique. We mainly serve the hinterland countries, and our economy is mainly driven by three corridors. The south that feeds South Africa and Swaziland, the central corridor that feeds Zambia, and the northern corridor as well will plays the key role. When it comes to SMEs, I think it's important to share how in Mozambique we classify the SMEs. You know that there are two main criteria for you to classify the SMEs, and this criteria is based on the number of employees and the yearly turnover. Completely different from the prime markets like in Europe and in the United States. For example, in the prime market, the maximum employees to be considered as an SME is around 250, and the turnover is around $54 million. That's the maximum for it to be considered as an SME. In Mozambique, it's completely different. The maximum number of employees is hundreds for you to be considered as an SME, and the maximum turnover is 2.5 million. You can see how big is the difference in terms of classification. And the SMEs, they largely contribute to approx 80% of the Mozambique economy, and it's the large employment is being provided by the SMEs. And in terms of how they're really big. They're really big first in the suburban areas of the capitals of each province, and also along the value chain area where there's a large project. So this is how the SMEs are shaped in Mozambique. Within the SME section, you still have a little bit of breakdown because we classify between micro, small, and medium. All of them, they are part of the SME classification.
Great. So look, I think both of you have very well established the importance of SMEs. And I think you've given us both kind of the human face. I think that came across very strongly in Joyce's comments. And I think, Milton, it was really helpful for you to share the two main criteria that classify SMEs in the context of Mozambique. And I think what we can deduce from this conversation is that SMEs play a really critical role in local economies and certainly in bolstering communities. So my next question is, if these businesses are so important, why do so many still struggle to access finance? And then related to that, what are the realities entrepreneurs face on the ground?
Yes, indeed. It's a very good question, considering what we have just mentioned, how critical SMEs are to our economy. You'll see that the major constraint is that they are invisible to the traditional banking system. They are invisible in that the data does not connect them to the credit information sharing system that the traditional bankers are using. And as a result, you can have a very well-established SME in the rural area that has been performing phenomenally well for years and years and generations as well. And their business is thriving, they're good, they've got the drive. But because they're not good at record keeping or producing financials, these are things that the lenders are not able to then be able to give them a credit score on. So in terms of the challenges as well, in Malawi, a lot of reliance is put on collateral. And collateral lending is where even before they ask you whether your business idea is good or whether there is a repayment source coming out from the business, they're already leaning on, do you have a house? Do you have a car? Can you bring something to the table? And in this case, you'll find that most of the rural communities that we are driving our economies, they do not have the kind of collateral that the banks are looking for. And as a result, a lot of them are left out of the banking system. In Malawi, in 2018, only in 2018, I should say, were women allowed to actually own land or property. So you can just imagine it's just like coming. And till today, you'll go to a lot of like rural areas, women are not yet holding any tangible title or property. So the issues also, a lot of it is to do with access. You'll find that most of the banks, their head offices are in the city center. Even just for them to go to do a site visit and see these businesses is a struggle. So going back to the word, they are invisible. And the reality on the ground is also that because of a lot of issues, social issues in Malawi, you'll find that a lot of them are not really well educated. They understand their businesses. They do very well in their businesses, and yet they cannot translate that onto paper. And therefore, that is a great challenge. So access is also a challenge for them.
No, that's great. Thank you, Milton. Your thoughts on those two questions?
In Mozambique, the reality on the ground it's quite similar to what's happening in Malawi, but it falls on lack of organization from the SMEs. Then we reach the lack of financial information that it's readable for the banking system. And then third, the mismatch between the need and the right product that is required to get access to capital. When it regards to the mismatch in terms of the need and the product, you might find an SME knocking the door in a financial institution asking a short-term loan to acquire equipment. So obviously there's a mismatch. So you can see that most of the SMEs, they just know that they need capital, but they don't know exactly what type of capital, what type of products they need to knock the door of the financial institutions so they can provide an answer. On the other side, it's the topic of the guarantees as referred by Joyce. Majority of the SMEs, literally, they have no guarantees. If they do have, you don't have the guarantees well registered. So if they're not well registered, they're not eligible for the banks to use as collateral. So this is in a nutshell the reality in Mozambique. And due to all this picture, that's where you have the SMEs falling on the hands of the most famous loan sharks, as we know that, which banks outside of the official financial system, and it's a very high in terms of costs, which leads to the SMEs do not survive for more than 18 or 24 months. That's the reality in Mozambique.
Thanks, Milton, and thank you very much for both of you for candid responses to that question. And I think what I took away from that was that there's a disconnect between SMEs and the formal banking system that results in the invisibility of the SMEs, that we still experience discriminatory laws and practices in place, particularly around collateral and assets, land more specifically. The issue around technical language, I think both of you raised that in different ways. Milton talked about it in terms of the mismatch between the need and the product. And I think those are some critical thoughts that we need to take forward. Now, many people assume when we talk about SMEs, it's about lending, right? It's simply about having money available. From your experience, what makes financing small businesses difficult?
It's kind of a challenge in that these are great businesses, but they're working in volatile environments. So you're looking at anything that can happen from the weather. In Malawi, we have fuel scarcity. Sometimes we don't have fuel for days on end. And somebody is running a taxi service. We call them kabaza, like the motorbikes. I mean, if they cannot have access to fuel, it means that their business is grounded for days. And if they have a loan that they need to pay in the coming month, it means that there's no liquidity, there's no money for them. They're not generating any money. I've been to my local hairdresser on days when they didn't have any electricity there. And you sit there and you look at the small business and they have a loan. They've actually used the loan to purchase most of the equipment in the salon. and they have to repay that month, but electricity is not in there. We haven't had water on certain days. And in other instances, I've asked, like, don't you have backup power? They're like, yes, we have a generator, but we're not allowed to go and buy fuel in containers. It's actually prohibited. So then what do? They just sit and wait. So these are the issues that we see. And so because of these risks, it's very easy for these small businesses to easily be wiped out. We also have issues with foreign currency availability. I mean, just to import maybe spare parts and equipment is a challenge. We have had issues in the past where we provided a guarantee to one of our beneficiaries who had to import equipment from China. And it took maybe 8 months, and that impacted loan repayments. So these are the kind of issues that they're facing. In addition to the information gaps that we already discussed, these are the challenges that we're seeing on the ground. The other thing that is a constraint is also that the size of these loans does not make it appealing for lenders to go into that market, because it's the same work you do on a $1 million, $2 million loan that you do on a $1,000 loan. And economies of scale in terms of where do you want to put your effort in versus the output is what actually then differentiates between who gets the money and who doesn't.
Thank you. Milton, let's go to you. And there are a couple more questions. So if you can give some crisp answers, that would be great.
Well, in Mozambique, one of the challenge you can classify it according to the two main layers in terms of SMEs. You've got the SMEs that are really informal, like the ones who sell in the markets, and you've got the SMEs that they belong to a value chain of a multinational or a big project. So for the ones who are informal, the biggest challenge is their vulnerability to face external shocks, whether it's climate or economic shocks. These are very, very weak in terms of the vulnerability. And then the second ones on the little bit more organized SMEs, the biggest challenge is absence of off-takers. We might find SMEs who are a little bit organized. They have got financial reports, although the financial reports are not really, they don't reflect the reality. They don't have reliable off-takers, so that the financial institution, once they find us, they know that the financial flow will be clear and the money will be repaid. So the biggest issue is absence of reliable off-takers for the more organized SMEs and vulnerabilities of the informal SMEs.
No, that's great. So look, I think just to wrap this session up, this part of the question up, I think, SMEs operating in contexts where basic services are disrupted certainly is an issue. I think Joyce highlighted that. The issue around economies of scale is an issue that needs to be unpacked and considered. And I think Milton raises a really important point around not all SMEs are the same. You've got some that are more informal, whereas you have the others that are more formalized. Now let's move on to think a bit more about cooperatives and women's groups and the important role that they play in the markets in which you both work. Why do they matter, and what do they make possible that individual entrepreneurs may struggle to achieve alone?
So cooperatives are really important because they provide the bargaining power in terms of being able to go together as a collective and ask for a loan or get the services you need. So it's very important. And they come together and aggregate their products so they can actually demand better prices. But also they come together and also educate each other. Because they work as a group, if one is failing, the other one is there to support them. So these are the things that are very important. And they're teaching each other on things like saving, how to keep better records, and how to repay loans quickly and properly. And they are accountable for where I sit in terms of, if you look at maybe an individual SME walking into a bank, their voice is very small. But if they come as a collective, it's more impact. Thank you,
So
Charlotte.
there's power in numbers right there, right?
Literally.
Milton, any thoughts?
Yes. Well, cooperatives means organization. That's what I can summarize. If you have a cooperative, you can guarantee that we have all the information in terms of production, in terms of players, which is becomes available, and then brings more credibility to all the parts involved, all the members of the community. And this is great because it opens a lot of doors for the members of the cooperative. Yeah, I'm talking about access to finance, access to training, and that's in a nutshell the biggest impact in terms of the cooperatives.
Yeah, so I mean, I think one of the takeaways that I have from both interventions is that we also need to invest in establishing the cooperatives so that they are functional and can operate accordingly. So thank you both for that. We've got two more questions, Milton and Joyce, and maybe I'll start with Milton this time and ask you, Milton, to share a story that illustrates the different access to finance that can be made through a cooperative, community group, or local enterprise. And then I'll come to you, Joyce, on the same question.
Well, the clear example that we have, it's the guarantee that we deployed in Mozambique. It was specifically to a financial institution who is focused in rural areas, and they support the sugarcane industry. On the sugarcane industry, you've got a lot of small growers who needs to get access to the main processing facility. So based on the guarantee that shared interest issued, it was able to unlock approx $500,000 in terms of capital to different players within the value chain. So the biggest issue is that one of the cooperatives was mainly composed by women, and these women's operating, they were able to increase their income, and based on that increase of income, they improved their houses. In the rural areas, you've got those small houses which are made of a material similar to bamboo, not as hard as bamboo, but very, very soft material. It's called caniso. Okay, so this material it's really not safe when it's windy, when it's raining. You can easily get water into, your roof can go up with a small wind. So based on this increase in terms of income, these ladies from this community, they were able to refurbish the house and build a more conventional with brick and concrete house with metal roofing. So I believe that if we look at the impact from the way that the capital was unlocked, they were able to generate more income and then be able to make a house more resilient. So I think it's really, really important, and mainly because in the south of Mozambique, I mean, in the Mozambique Channel, we are very vulnerable to tropical storms and so on.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah. No, thanks for sharing that example, and kind of bringing it home in real terms. Joyce, would you like to share a story with us that illustrates the difference between access to finance, what it can do in terms of going through cooperatives, community groups, or local enterprise?
Yeah, absolutely. Mine is more a story about one lady, and she's was born out of a gender-based violence home where her mother was raped, and then she was born out of that. And she decided when she grew up that she would find a way out of poverty, because a lot of the gender-based violence in Malawi is a result of poverty. And she set up this group of women, and with $2, with just $2, they started farming. And as they grew, they then were able to be visible to get a grant. But unfortunately, the grant required for them to match the funds. And a small group like them could not actually raise that kind of capital. And when they approached a lending institution, the lending institution needed a guarantee from shared interest. And with shared interest guarantee, they were able to access a loan, and that loan then unlocked this grant, which then helped them to buy equipment so that they could do more value addition. And with the value addition, they were able to actually thrive. As we speak, the founder has got her daughter in university, which is very rare when you consider that only 1% of women make it all the way to university in Malawi. So this is the power of cooperatives in Malawi and what a little finance can do to a family. It can change lives and transform people in ways that I cannot share. But her story resonates so deeply with me. So thank you for allowing me to share that.
Well, thank you for sharing that with us, because I think it really drives the point home. And you both mentioned shared interest. And as we know, shared interest often talks about local solutions for local challenges. Why are local knowledge and local decision making so important when expanding access to finance?
Yeah, definitely the local knowledge, it's really important because we are capable to, allow me to use this word, to put boots on the ground. We are allowed to, or we are capable we have the room to reach physically, first to the financial institutions who will unlock the capital, and second to the beneficiaries. We can see on the ground, in fact, what was financed, what type of equipment. If the project is not going properly, we can easily monitor and try to advise which route it might take. So without this local knowledge, it will be a big challenge to be on the ground and see the reality and be able to really feel the spirit of it and provide the proper advice way forward.
Fantastic. So I noted that there's a question in the chat, and the question comes from Donna, and it says, what is the importance of co-ops whose members share financial responsibility for each other's loans? Does shared interest work with them? What kind of support do the SMEs need, and what has shared interest experience been?
Excellent question. Co-ops have been critical to the work of shared interest, particularly as it relates to the kinds of beneficiaries that our model supports and catalyzes capital for. And so I think the question can be best answered by both Milton and Joyce in terms of, what are some of the more recent ways that our guarantee has been able to unlock capital for cooperatives. To add on to that question, as we look to scale our impact, how important are cooperatives to our future growth and future impact that we'd like to see in Malawi and in Mozambique?
So as Anne has rightly mentioned, co-ops are really at the heart of what we do at Shared Interest. And when you talk about impact, they are the ones that are really embedded, as I said earlier, in the communities. And therefore, if you desire impact, that's where you want to be. I'll give an example of one of the institutions that we are supporting, which is Community Finance, and they're lending to a multitude of co-ops. These co-ops are able to borrow money from Community Finance so that they can buy inputs like seed and fertilizer, and then grow the crops. And then at the end of when they harvest, they repay these loans. This guarantee actually, it helps to unlock the capital needed so that these inputs are provided. Without the guarantee, you can just imagine how many communities would go with hunger. Because remember, we said that co-ops work within the communities, providing different services and also just supporting households. So the work that we do is really critical just for the economy and the livelihoods of just ordinary people. They're feeding the entire nation.
Milton, your thoughts on the same?
Yes, in Mozambique, the existing cooperatives, they're very disciplined, and then they always have some sort of funds reserve in order to satisfy these very specific individual needs. But when it comes to approach a large sum of funds, they go it as a cooperative. Okay, so the responsibility is between all the members of the cooperative. But in Mozambique, the cooperatives, they don't have directly access to the financial institutions. There is an entity between the financial institution and the cooperatives, which we call it the aggregator, which is a medium-sized entity, well organized, who is the one who purchase all the raw materials, all the products from the cooperatives in order to supply them, for example, to a large producer. So the cooperatives, they don't have a direct access to a large financial institutions, but through an aggregator, they're able to have access to the funds.
That's great. Don, I hope we've answered that question collectively. And I think what I would like to close this session with is to say that I think listening to Joyce and to Milton and Anne's initial comments points to the fact that SMEs play a really critical, I would say even fundamental role in bolstering local economies. And it's important in terms of the economies, but it's also very much an issue around social inclusion, ensuring that women can participate. It helps with addressing issues around dignity and empowerment. So I think it's undisputed that these SMEs play a very critical role. That said, I think it's also important that we recognize that we need to have more investment in capital, that we need to make sure that guarantees are in place. And as Joyce rightly pointed out, that these SMEs don't operate in isolation. They are linked to broader services that are provided in the communities. And so I think we need to think about it as part of a holistic piece. And with that, I would like to thank Joyce and Milton very much for a really enlightening discussion. And I will hand over to Agai.
I want to thank each of you for your participation today, for the fantastic discussion, incredibly enlightening. I learned from listening to you, and I'm immersed in the background of the work, but it's just beautiful to see some of the texture come to the fore and how you characterize your work on the ground with cooperatives. It makes instant sense when you say it, but I hadn't thought about cooperatives equal credibility. And so the very straightforward and simple way you presented it was incredibly helpful. Charlotte, thank you for taking time out of your very busy day to lead us in the discussion. And thank you for opening us up as well. And then lastly, and probably as equally important or more importantly, thank you for listening in. Everyone who has come, given their time to listen, to think critically about the responses, to ask questions. We appreciate your participation and engagement.
Thank you, Agai. Thank you, Charlotte. Thank you, Milton. Thank you, Joyce. This is one of the ways we want to bring our work closer to our community of supporters. So please share the word and please help us grow the scale of the impact of shared interests. We really are strong stewards of the capital that we take in so that we can ensure that we are providing the kind of financial support to our beneficiaries and to our partners. We are in the midst of launching our next major growth phase. We have bold goals to reach 250,000 beneficiaries over the next 4 years. And to get there, we need to grow the impact of our guarantee fund and grow the impact of our operations. And so please help us meet these bold goals, but more importantly, please help us to spread the word. Shared Interests is a relatively small nonprofit guarantee fund that has that punches well above its weight. And so we hope that you will join us in our efforts to, do more of what we'd like to do in places like Malawi and in places like Mozambique, where our work is translating to 3 times the impact of what we're able to provide through our guarantee instrument. Thank you.